Yeah, I still got that deep, very sexy, I know, resonant laryngitis. But I feel okay. That's got to count for something, right? Just a little bit of sinus pressure left. This is the longest freaking cold of all time. I'm so sick of it. Ha. It's not funny at all. We had a trade this morning, and it meant nothing to nobody, to anybody. It meant all the things to nobody and nothing to everybody. Dwayne Dedman was sent from the Miami Heat to the San Antonio Spurs, along with a second-round pick in exchange for cash considerations. The Heat just trying to get off of Dedman's contract. He will probably not end up on the Spurs at the end of this trade season. Whether that's through an additional trade to a team that just wants a backup center, or whether it's through the buyout market or whatever, who cares? LeBron James goes for the record tonight against the Thunder. He needs quite a lot of points to get there, but anything's possible. And Cam Thomas went completely crazy for a second consecutive day. And we've got a card to recap, everybody. Welcome to Fantasy NBA Today. I am Dan Vespris. I'm going to push my way through. This will be a little bit shorter than yesterday's show. I selfishly need to start saving my voice because on Thursday, that's just 2 damn days from now, we've got our 5-hour trade deadline, mega, ultra, super fantastic, spectacular. There is not a media outlet, I don't think anywhere, that's doing what we're doing on trade deadline Thursday. I think that goes from the top down. Like, I don't think ESPN is doing it. I don't think the big box sites are doing it. I don't think any other fantasy sites are doing it. We are rolling at 7:30 a.m. through the deadline. We'll cut off at 12:30 p.m. This is Pacific time, I should say. So we'll roll a half an hour past the deadline. Make sure we get any of those, last second ones that trickle in. We didn't really have that last year. I don't think we really had it the year before either. There's usually like one or two that the league office is like watching the fax machine do its thing at 12 o'clock on the nose. And so they got to like run it through the legal stuff. And then we hear about it at 12:06 out here. I know that didn't happen last year. We just kept waiting, like sitting there with our arms crossed, staring, watching at Twitter, and nothing came through at that point. But I am excited to tell you all that we have the schedule officially for the trade deadline show, and I'm actually so excited about it. I kind of want to just tell you guys here at the outset. I will be joined by these amazing ethos minds: Steve Vidovich, our director of content; Keith Cork, who is one of our heads of the DFS department; Corbin Ford, who's been with us for a very long time. He's one of our heads on the reality side for NBA; John Mosales, one of our fantasy writers; Blake Creamer, who hosts our fantasy NHL podcast, interestingly enough, but who actually fancies himself quite good at fantasy basketball as well. Derek Ball, who many of you know for his weekly pieces here that profiles the upcoming week. He's fantastic at what he does. The great Joe Orico, who's a stud at both baseball and basketball. Brewski, come on. We got Brew. He's going to be with us for the final 2 hours of the show. The great Rhett Bauer, our dynasty expert, and Jeremiah Nakorda, who writes our weekly ads piece here at Sports Ethos. So those guys will be with me throughout the 5 hours. I'm planning on only stepping aside for like maybe 10 minutes in the middle of the show, just so, I don't die in the middle of a 5-hour trade deadline spectacular. And that's Thursday at 7:30 a.m. That'll run through 12:30 p.m. Pacific time. The page is up. I would say I'm gonna get the link in the description somehow, whether it's during the live YouTube portion of this show that I'm recording right now, or if I'm going to get it on the recorded side. I'm going to get the link to the trade deadline live show as many places as humanly possible. You guys must go bookmark it. I don't want you getting caught up in life on Thursday morning and then realizing you forgot and, missing the first, whatever it is, couple of hours. Have it on your phone in the background, have it on your computer in the background, whatever it needs to be. So excited to talk to you guys all on Thursday. Last year, I can't even, I know that I know ESPN has their show and hundreds of thousands of people watch that. We're not in that stratosphere. I get it. But as someone that's been doing these podcasts for a number of years now and doing our trade deadline show for a number of years, last year, we had almost 1,000 people watching live at the same time. And that was like, I mean, people were coming and going. It was bouncing up and down between 800 and 900 and 950 and whatever. But like, I mean, you can see it. Most of these live shows that I'm doing during the week are like 50 or 60 people. 1,000. Oh, that was so cool. I hope we can beat it. I hope we can beat it this year. That's my goal. So go bookmark that. Take a moment here. Make sure you don't miss it with us here on Thursday morning. And let's talk a little bit about what's going on in the NBA right now. Big news of the day is nothing really. I mean, everything I think today is coming out of the box scores from last night. There were no massive injuries that took place in the Monday evening situation. So I think we could just kind of float our way through it, focusing heavily on the big picture stuff. Not so much because I don't want to talk about everything else, but because I can't. I just can't talk that much the next 2 days, or I won't make it through Thursday. You guys just got to bear with me on this one. Boston beat Detroit 111-99. No big surprises there. Jaylen Brown sat this ball game out, and so everybody assumed he was getting traded for Kevin Durant. I really don't think that's happening. It felt like Stephen A. Smith was kind of talking out of his rectum, but we'll see. I mean, if I get that wrong, I get that wrong. I don't think he's going anywhere. With no Marcus Smart and no Jaylen Brown, no surprise. Derek White, he did a whole lot more. Malcolm Brogdon had a solid ball game. I thought we'd get a few more shots out of Big Al. But Big Al was just Big Al, plus 18, just sort of always right spot, right time, and couldn't get his shots to drop in this one. But again, this is the basement. 6 boards, 3 assists, a 3-pointer, didn't get his defensive stats. And then in the other games, he'll get, a steal and a block and 3 3-pointers. And it all evens out to where he's been all season long, which is like between 70 and 90. So just stop asking about it. I'm not going to say to drop him ever. He's playing 33 minutes as a starting center or power forward in the NBA. I'm not going to tell you to drop him. He's just going to be a quiet roto producer all season long. That's it. Sam Hauser had 15 points. Yeah, I can't bring myself to make an ad there. I know he had 5 3-pointers and etc. It didn't sound like Jaylen Brown was going to be out all that long, so I think I'll kindly pass. Killian Hayes played 32 minutes off the bench. Alec Burks only got 19 minutes as a starter. I think this is the kind of thing you see for Detroit. I thought we might see Burks get big minutes all the way through the deadline, but it's possible that they might now be kind of trying to throttle him down, make sure he doesn't get hurt between today and Thursday, and then they can get some trade value for him because Burks is very much on the block. We know Bojan Bogdanovic, they've said they're totally fine with holding him, and perhaps they are as some kind of steadying veteran presence out there, but also if they can get a first for him, they probably will. What does that mean for everybody else? Well, there's no one that I'm stashing on Detroit. No one on the team has shown themselves to, frankly, have a good enough fantasy profile to warrant a stash. If we see Killian Hayes move back into the starting lineup, you probably pick him up as a low-end point guard. Saddiq Bey belongs on rosters right now because he's taking a ton of shots off the bench, and that's enough. Jalen Duren belongs on rosters because he's a rebounding menace. Even if they try to keep his minutes a little bit in check, I don't mind. Jaden Ivey, he's been a luxury stash pretty much all season long. Playing, but kind of doing more harm than good in 9 category formats, unless you're punting a couple of things. And then Isaiah Stewart had 10 and 12 here. He'd been playing better lately. This was an uglier game for him. Bad percentages, no defensive stats, no 3-pointers. I'm on the fence with Stewart. Every time I think that he might be turning a fantasy corner, he goes back kind of into a turtle shell. I wouldn't use a move on him this week in a head-to-head format. I probably would stash him on my bench in Roto and just kind of see, is he coming around? If guys get cleared out, does that help him? Do we ever see Marvin Bagley again? Because that could blow it up as well. It's probably best to just leave that alone. If it's this much work, if you have to think about it this much, it's probably not really worth doing. Cleveland, nothing really there. Washington, Daniel Gafford left early again. Oh, Gafford, you're killing me, man. These fantasy lines are so robust. 11 points, 8 boards, 5 of 6 shooting, 3 blocks in only 24 minutes. He probably would have played the last 3 or 4 minutes of the ball game, but he couldn't. He couldn't make it through the end of the ball game. You're killing me, Daniel. You are killing me. On the Roto side, to me, he's a guy that belongs on rosters. He's just, the big man upside is too good for him. No Bradley Beal, no Kyle Kuzma, so that helps Gafford because Porzingis then soaks up some of the power forward minutes that Kuzma would have normally played. It also helps Denny Avdia when both of those guys are out because it opens up basically all the wing minutes and extra usage. I think you roll with Avdia as long as Beal is out. Certainly, if Beal and Kuzma are both out, you roll with them. But it sounded like Beal was pretty close. My guess is that you see him in the next ball game. And so then Monte Morris becomes someone you don't need to bother with. I dropped Delon Wright last week, and I don't feel bad about it. And then Gafford is the guy I'm holding here because we've seen he can do it in 25 minutes per game. And it seems like they want to get him there with no Rui Hachimura, but we sort of don't know for sure because he's only made it through 2 ball games lately. Clippers, a whole lot of nothing here. Marcus Morris got ejected, so a couple extra shots went to like Reggie Jackson, but who cares? Brooklyn is interesting, if only for a night. They play again tonight, the Nets do, and I think we're expected to see the Spencer Dinwiddie and Dorian Finney-Smith debuts for Brooklyn, which is going to change the way things look a lot. I have no idea what the starting lineup is going to look like for the Brooklyn Nets a week from today because Kevin Durant is probably also going to be back by then. In fact, there was supposed to be a post-game report on KD, but I don't think it actually came out, so perhaps we'll hear something more about Durant today. Here's the thing. Royce O'Neal, his minutes are now in a little bit of jeopardy because Dorian Finney-Smith plays the same position basically the same way that Royce does. Edmund Sumner and Cam Thomas, who started in the backcourt for Brooklyn, at least one of those guys is not going to be starting, one would assume, once Spencer Dinwiddie's in town. I would assume that Sumner's the guy that goes to the bench, but I guess we don't know for sure. Thomas is not going to get 29 shots when KD and Dinwiddie are back, but will there still be enough for Cam when it's just Dinwiddie and Dorian Finney-Smith and not Kevin Durant? I'm inclined to think, before we know anything else about what's going on tonight, and I reserve the right to change my opinion here if we find out that, who's in and who's out for Brooklyn in the starting lineup and stuff like that, I think you probably see Finney-Smith either come off the bench or start alongside Royce O'Neal and bump Joe Harris, but they probably want a little bit more floor spacing. It's hard to say. I'm fairly certain Spencer Dinwiddie is going to start immediately. He has a familiarity with the organization at the very least, even if, a lot of the personnel has changed. And you probably see a Cam Thomas, Spencer Dinwiddie backcourt, and those guys pretty much take all of the shots in this game tonight. So I still think you can start Cam for one more day. Claxton, obviously, he's been amazing this year. Sumner, I don't think that I would start tonight in a games cap format. If you already have him on the head-to-head side, you probably just ride it out through the deadline because you don't want to use any roster moves to get off of someone if there isn't someone super obvious to pick up on the other side of that, which there kind of isn't. But then on the Finney-Smith, Royce O'Neal stuff, I honestly have no idea how that whole thing's going to shake out. And it's quite possible that one of those two guys isn't on the Nets 2 days from today. Anyway, that's where I am with Brooklyn. Chicago, this is a blowout. Andre Drummond actually played well even before the blowout. He was part of the lineups that were creating the blowout. I don't think this is going to change the rotations at all in Chicago, but he had a big ball game, so you need to at least kind of point at it and say, look at that shiny thing. I'm more interested on the Spurs side of this. Zach Collins only got 13 minutes. They took the bubble wrap off of Jakob Poeltl, interestingly enough, probably because Zach Collins was being picked up, thrown in the air, spun around, and then devoured by Vooch and Drummond. So Poeltl had a good ball game, 14-9 with a couple of blocks. He's very likely to get moved to the deadline. I think you kind of hope that he gets moved because where he goes, that team would probably give him starters minutes. He's going to cost somebody a first-round pick. I don't think that a team's going to give up a first to get a guy they're going to play, 20 minutes off the bench. That feels improbable. Second round picks, that type of stuff happens all the time. First rounders, teams don't usually give up a first unless they're getting somebody back that they want to play a bunch. But again, this is why I fear the Zach Collins stuff a little bit. Even if he gets the starting job, there's no guarantee he gets all the minutes. Isaiah Roby chewed up a bunch of center minutes. We've seen Charles Bassey do it in the past. I think he's with their G League team right now. And that's why Collins is a little bit iffy, because he does need the full 27 plus minutes to hit fantasy value. He needs them all. That's why we lean towards a guy like a Mark Williams, because he really only needs 23 to hit fantasy value, maybe less. Josh Richardson, when he starts, I will start him. I picked up Richardson in a couple of roto spots. I didn't pick him up in head-to-head because I'm fairly certain he's going to get moved, and then he'll probably have to miss a game or two because of said trade. And then wherever he goes, there's no guarantee that he has this type of role. So that was more of a games cap play, and I'm happy about it. He got me 4 steals. That was great. And a 3-pointer. Digging it. I wouldn't complain if he got a rebound, but look, that's fine. Malachi Branham is the other question mark, at least on the Spurs side. I think I don't fully trust his roto game. The shame there is that he actually would make sense as a head-to-head grab if we knew Trey Jones was going to be out for the whole week, but we sort of don't. And then also, again, you don't want to use your moves early because Branham is not a rest of season play. Trey Jones will come back at some point here, and he's the guy who gets to be the starting point guard. Sacramento, Houston was largely devoid of fantasy stuff. The Kings blew out the Rockets. The Rockets coach, Steven Silas, had a meltdown after the game that his team doesn't guard anybody, which they don't. And that's top to bottom. Eric Gordon, I'm sure, would love to get himself out of town. He should be soon. KJ Martin had one of his better ball games. And the problem with KJ is that he doesn't get as many defensive stats as it seems like someone of his athleticism should. It's like that's been the Brandon Ingram thing for so long. These guys that, with Ingram, his arms I think his wingspan is 45 feet. And yet he gets almost no steals or blocks. KJ Martin is this high fly act who can do everything, but he doesn't get any steals or blocks. He also misses a lot of free throws. So Martin, for me, is, again, a guy you probably lean more into on the head-to-head side if you're a punt free throw team or a punt defensive stats team or points league, frankly. He's been very good while Kevin Porter Jr. has been out. He's been a terrific points league option. He potentially could be a starter the rest of the year if they move Eric Gordon and nobody else. He's also on the block. We've heard KJ Martin is wanted out of Houston as well. Jayshawn Tate, would he slide into those minutes? Would Tari Eason slide into those minutes? Probably a little bit of both. Eason's the guy you're holding in the hopes that a forward gets traded at the deadline for the Rockets. Eric Gordon moving by himself would not be enough to get Eason up to 26, 27 minutes. He intermittently plays 23 to 25, and we've seen that's actually enough for Tari on the fantasy profile side. But, his upside is so gigantic that you kind of at this point need to just hang on through Thursday and hope they move a forward. Or 2 guys. That would be special. Let's keep shuffling along. Dallas, these were the zombie Mavericks. Jaden Hardy had 29. Reggie Bullock had 5 defensive stats. Josh Green also had 29. Dwight Powell had a double-double. Christian Wood is working his way back into form. His minutes will ramp up here very shortly. But Dallas plays tomorrow. Luka I don't believe Luka is expected to play in the Mavericks' next ball game. But Kyrie Irving is. And so immediately you're going to see a bunch of usage shift to Kyrie. In the very short term, Josh Green probably holds 12-team value. While either Luka or Kyrie or both aren't playing, he definitely does. When it's one or the other, he probably hits 12-teamers. And then when both are healthy, I don't think anybody on that team has 12-team value besides the 2 primary ball handlers and Christian Wood. That'll be a 3-horse situation once Luka, Kyrie, and Wood are all playing full starters minutes together. You might still get 14 or 16 team stuff out of Green or Tim Hardaway or Reggie Bullock or whatever, but I don't know that it's worth it. Green probably makes sense as a games cap. Like, basically, if you're not using a weekly move, I think I would pick him up for tomorrow. But I don't know that I would have the stones to start him in a games cap after we see Luka and Kyrie back. But I mean, maybe Luka misses the rest of the week. So you might get a couple of games out of Green to that end. Utah just did not come out ready. I think Theo Pinson, isn't he one of the Mavs assistant coaches now? Or is he technically, I don't know what the hell he does for Dallas. He said he tweeted that the Jazz didn't come out on the court until like 12 minutes before the game started. And the Mavs were like, are you kidding me? You're not going to take this game seriously because we don't have Luka or Kyrie? And then they waxed them. Utah they did not come ready to play. Embarrassing effort, frankly, by the Jazz. But, as someone who's rooting for the Lakers to sneak into a play-in spot, I'm perfectly fine with other bad Western Conference teams not paying attention and getting pantsed by a D-League squad. Sorry, G-League squad now. So the Jazz fell under 500 for, that might be the first time since, is that all year? The first time they've been under 500? They are still the 10 seed. They're a half game up on the Blazers, a game up on the Thunder, and a game and a half up on the Lakers. There's a battle going on right now, folks. There's a battle going on and there's been a little bit of a separation. The Warriors are 2 games over, Suns are 3 games over, and they're getting Booker back, and now the Mavericks got Kyrie. So it does feel like the top 6 are about to squeeze away from the 7, 8, 9, 10. I think you're going to have a play-in battle going on where the Wolves have been hot lately, but we've seen how they can run hot and cold. The Warriors just lost Steph, and they won, to their credit, but it was against the Thunder, another team fighting in that same pocket. Whatever. We're hearing talks that the Jazz and Lakers have discussed Conley, Beasley, and Vanderbilt for Russell Westbrook. Conley would still get plenty to do in LA. If he was alongside LeBron and AD, I think he would pretty much have the same role he has here, which is running a second unit. Probably shoots more, actually, in Los Angeles. Beasley, he would not be an ad in such a spot. And Vanderbilt, who was hurt for this ball game, he would also not be an ad. And it's possible the Lakers they might try to move him along somewhere else, because I don't even know where the hell they would play Jared Vanderbilt in Los Angeles. They'd be jammed in behind AD and Thomas Bryant. He'd play ahead of Wenyen Gabriel, but I mean, that's a lot. Anyway, Walker Kessler, there's no big news out of the Jazz. Kelly Olynyk's up to basically starters minutes now, so he should be back on rosters. It's probably the only real note on the Jazz from this very ball game. But in terms of other things that could happen, that's just stuff to look out for. My thought, same thing as I said yesterday. Oh, that was the player. It was Colin Sexton. That was who I said on yesterday's podcast as the guy you want to keep your finger over the button on. If the Jazz make that trade, there's almost no way they hold on to Russ. Maybe they pick up somebody else in that deal from the Lakers. I doubt it. I mean, because they want to get off the money that's owed to Conley next year in particular. So I don't. That would immediately free up Colin Sexton. So he's a really interesting, actually, trade deadline stash if the Jazz go that route. And then they sort of, to a certain degree, that probably pushes them out of the play-in conversation. So they got a lot of questions to answer in Utah. They've been pretty bad, not terrible, but like pretty bad after that incredibly hot start. They cannot win on the road to save their lives. And then they lost at home in this one. That's what made it particularly rough. Thermonuclear Klay Thompson got the Warriors over the Thunder. He had 42 points, 12 threes. I mean, there are still very few things that bring me as much fantasy or even just regular basketball joy as watching ultra hot Klay Thompson. He doesn't dribble the basketball ever. It's just pass, boom, 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 boom. He's just gunning. And there's nothing anybody can do. Think about gigantic defenders all the way around him. If he gets even an inch of space, it's going down. This is not going to happen every single ball game, but it does bring into focus, I think, the fact that Klay has quietly been really good after a brutal first month of the season. First month he was bad. Since then, he's been top 50 the rest of the year. I know he takes his days off for rest, but you knew that coming into the season. So if you drafted him, that was part of the package. The actual fantasy notes on this ball game, Dante DiVincenzo, 14, 4, and 7. He's the guy that we're keeping an eye on because he has been, I used the term on Twitter last night. I'll use it here on the podcast. He's been kind of nuzzling up against fantasy value, even while the Warriors have been healthy, kind of snuggling it almost. It's like trying to get in tight with fantasy value. He had value when Wiggins and Curry were out. Wiggins is back now. Curry is out. Is there enough for DiVincenzo in this particular situation? I'm inclined to say that head-to-head, he's probably worth a move. Honestly, even on trade deadline week, because Curry's going to be out probably a month. And there's almost no way that Dante's worse than like 125 with Curry out. The question is more so on the Roto Games Cap side. Is he going to be like a 90 or better range guy? And I'm leaning towards no, but it's really close. He's like right on the razor's edge with that stuff. Can he hit enough threes and get enough steals consistently to be top 90 range while Steph is hurt? It's so close. It's a coin flip for me. So if you wanted to do it, I wouldn't have a problem with that. I wouldn't talk you out of it. If you don't want to do it, I don't think I'd talk you into it. I know, take a stand, Dan, but I don't really have one on this. Shea was not superhuman, so the Thunder lost, because pretty much that's how they win, is when Shea Gilgeous-Alexander is a freight train, and he was just a regular little train in this ball game. Aaron Wiggins had a better game. Go figure. Jalen Williams had 4 defensive stats, but the rest of his stuff was not so great. He's still startable to me at least as long as Robinson Earl and Pokusevski are out. And then we can kind of reassess when they come back. It might not impact him at all. We may find out, but it also still might. Milwaukee has Chris Middleton back, and lo and behold, they're a better ball club because of it. Middleton was pretty good. He got up to close to 22 minutes. I think we can start him now. It seems like by their next ball game, he'll probably be at 23 or 24, which was kind of my original target for him anyway. Brook Lopez had a much better ball game here. He'd been kind of quieting down a little bit. Pat Connaughton has done a nice job filling in for Bobby Portis. He makes sense more on the head-to-head than the Roto side. I have Connaughton in our 30-deep industry league, which, that's working out for me right now because I badly need guys to pick up the slack with Kelly Oubre and Kevin Durant and Justice Winslow and Porzingis for a little bit, everybody on the shelf. But you know what you're going to get with Connaughton. It's not going to be a game-changing fantasy line. It's going to be fine. Sometimes fine is good. Wonder if Portland does anything at the deadline. We've heard Josh Hart's name on the block. He actually played okay in this one. 14 and 8, hit a couple of three-pointers even. I still like Hart. I hope he ends up in a place where he gets an equally decent role. But, who knows? Drew Eubanks got up to 25 and a half minutes in this one. Trendon Watford was much worse. We figured that as Eubanks' back got better, he would start to see more of the Lions' share at center. The only thing that missing from Eubanks' line here was a steal or a block. This is basically what you were hoping for. 10 points. He didn't get the rebounds, but he got assists for whatever reason. 5 of 9 shooting. That'll work. And then you just hope for a block or 2. Or 2 defensive stats. That's kind of what you're targeting here. 1.5 to 2. If you picked up Eubanks, continue to have Drew Eubanks. Let's take a very, very quick look at the Tuesday evening card. Although, I hesitate a little bit on the Tuesday evening card, if only because I kind of don't want you guys streaming. I know, maybe you have 5 or 6 weekly moves, so it's a little bit easier to make the call and you can stream a little bit easier, but I still think that you ought to hold on to him. In any event, New York streaming options there. Isaiah Hartenstein, he's been playing better here lately. Emmanuel Quickley's been okay. That's less robust. Orlando, nothing. Atlanta, I'm assuming Trae Young is back, so nothing there really. New Orleans, we've seen Trey Murphy's been really good here lately. Herb Jones probably doesn't quite make the cut for me, with Ingram likely to be back for this ball game after resting on the back-to-back. Phoenix, Devin Booker coming back for this one, so no streaming options there, but that's good news. We get a star back in the mix. Brooklyn, Cam Thomas, I think probably continues to hold value for at least one more ball game here, maybe until Kevin Durant comes back, but we'll kind of see what they do with their guys besides him. Chicago, nothing. Memphis, just keep an eye on the injury report. It seems like against a giant Chicago front line, you'll probably see plenty of Xavier Tillman in this ball game, so he's likely streamable. I don't think Brandon Clark gets to do much in this one, but I guess we'll see. Minnesota, let's hope Slow-Mo plays. Denver, maybe Bruce Brown if anybody sits in the starting lineup. Oklahoma City, meh. Lakers, meh. I mean, other than LeBron. LeBron is obviously the huge story in trying to break the record, but, from a, is there any fantasy angle I'm looking at in LA? Nah. All right, my voice is tired. See, we kept this thing around 35 minutes or so on the recorded side. Hey, to my recorded podcast listeners, first of all, love you lots. Second of all, follow me on Twitter at Dan Besbris, DanBesbris. To everybody right now, please keep reaching out if you want to cover a team. And when I say cover them, I don't mean fantasy. I mean like be a beat reporter on a team, but do it as a podcaster. It's a lot of fun. I actually ran our Lakers show for a couple of years back when it first started. It's a blast. You combine that with, tweeting about the team and interacting with people in that team's media space and grow something special. Hit me up on Twitter at Dan Besbris. And that's basketball, football, baseball, hockey, whatever. If you got a team that you are super passionate about, that you think you can cover them without a ton of bias, hit me. You can even put it in the YouTube chat if you're watching live right now. I'll see you. At some point, I'll see it. Okay, everybody, have a wonderful Tuesday. To my recorded listeners, I will talk to you first thing Wednesday morning. And let's go back to saving my voice because Thursday is going to be crazy. I definitely, even if I don't see you on Wednesday, I insist that I see you on Thursday. All right, have a great one, everybody. All right, YouTubers, if you got questions, this is the time to do it. I'm going to pull up the player rank page here so you guys can see if I'm looking at a particular player rank. There they are. Make my face a tiny bit larger. I know it's hard for you guys to see the names there, so that stinks. But also, if I put my face down in the corner, then the questions cover it up. Like, look at this. If I move myself down, oh, I guess that's okay. No, but then it covers the names. There's no perfect solution here. We'll go back to this one. Would the addition of Kyrie affect Luka's production or vice versa? So before I answer that question, I want to remind everybody to please do like and subscribe because while all that was going on, I think some of you guys caught up to my initial request and it jumped up to 34. But there's about 60 of you watching right now. So I'd love to see that 34 turn into a 40, he said while staring at the screen and quietly considering whether or not to answer the next question, saving his voice and watching and waiting for the 34 to go to a higher number. Seriously? Nothing? All right, maybe everybody else is running on delay. If you guys are running on delay, you should really notice it next time. Like, stop and check because you're going to miss the chance to get your questions in. Anyway, yes, because Luka didn't have a running mate. Kyrie did with Kevin Durant. So this, nobody really has more usage than Luka. So he's going to impact everybody. But Kyrie has at least kind of been used to having that other alpha. Luka hasn't. This will be a kind of a new thing for him. I expect that it will impact Luka because he's just like he shouldn't have to do as much as he did. I don't think he wants to be doing as much as he had to do before. I would expect a dip for Luka, and I would expect a much smaller dip for Kyrie. Is Killian Hayes an ad again? Yeah, probably. I always expected him to go back to doing more after the All-Star break and not All-Star break, excuse me, the trade deadline. And we are quite close to that now. So thoughts on Chris Middleton? When do you think he'll have a full workload? Well, let's see here. He's going up by about a minute per game here. So, I don't know, 2 weeks? 2 weeks. Call it February 21st. I have no idea if they have a game on the 21st, but I think it'll be around there that you'll start to see him, like, approaching 30. But honestly, like, who cares? He's good enough now, so everything we get on top of that is just gonna be gravy. Sorry, I mean, who cares? That's not fair. We care. We want more. We always want more. We wanna, spoon feed as much as we can there, but once he hits 24 minutes, he's a fantasy play, and it's just gonna keep going up from there. Evan, what's up, dude? My DeJounte and Trey Jones for his Donovan Mitchell and Devin Vassell. Yeah, I'm good with that, provided you can squat on Vassell. And honestly, I think I would take this trade even if you had to drop Vassell, because Donovan Mitchell is about 1 round above Murray, and in a 10-teamer, you just want to consolidate as much at the top as you possibly can. Is Mark Williams a stash in 12-team points league? So 12-team category leagues, the answer is a resounding yes. Points leagues, it's less obvious because a lot of his value is tied up in great field goal percent, not being the world's worst free throw shooter, and then, field goal percent, rebounds, and blocks. So it'd be hard for him, I think, to pile up fantasy value in points leagues, but I would still do it because if Mason Plumlee gets moved, there's almost no way he's not a 12-teamer. It's just not as exciting in points leagues as it is in category formats. Mitso, I don't know if you've been around with us before. Well, welcome. I don't recognize your name, but it's possible you have. What point guard should I target if I want to trade Miles Turner or Jaren Jackson Jr.? Well, it's a good thing I've got this board right here. So here's JJJ at number 13. Look for point guards nearby. Donovan Mitchell, if he, he's not a traditional point guard, I guess, but he's around there. If you're looking at Miles Turner, here he is at number 19. Freddie Van Fleet. Let's wait and make sure he isn't traded, but he would be an interesting target you almost definitely could get for either one of those guys. I don't think you'll be able to trade up, but Kyrie is actually on the board here for JJJ. If you want to go down a tiny bit farther, LaMelo Ball, I think people are afraid of a shutdown there. I'm a little bit less afraid of that. If you went even farther down the board to a Darius Garland at 35, you should get something else with it. So if you went JJJ or Miles for Darius Garland, it should be Darius and like someone in the 60s. So those are some possible options there. Josh Giddey or Jared Allen rest of season points league. So that's a big deal. Category leagues, it's Allen. Points leagues, it's Giddey. Hey, Dan, hope you feel better. I'm getting there, man. I got him in my voice. Definitely recommend boiling turmeric and ginger root in water and using that water with your tea. Interesting. Honestly, it's not overuse. It's from a cold. So it's just inflammation. I got to stop talking. I got to just chill. Got to get a lozenge in the tank and just shut the hell up. I can say that to myself. I'm allowed to say that from me to me. Roberto, I have both Dinwiddie and Simmons, but need to drop one tomorrow. I'm dropping Simmons. His fantasy game is kind of cruddy. If you're punting free throws or points, Simmons gets a massive leap. But if you're competing in all 9 categories, he hasn't been inside the top 100. And I don't know that he gets there. Dinwiddie has been. So kind of, simple as that on that one for me. Last thing we need is LeBron catching whatever you've had the last week, Dan. Stay away. Yeah, that's a good point. I'll stay home. You're in the sports business. You have to go. Yeah, I mean, I can't leave a 2-year-old at home by himself, though. That's the tricky part. I actually already had a call out of one obligation today because I screwed up my schedule. I don't know. Life is complicated. You are correct, though. It would be freaking sweet, and I love hanging out with my cousin. He's one of my closest cousins. I'm very lucky. I have a lot of family in Los Angeles. My mother and her brother and their 2 first cousins, which all came from my maternal grandmother and her sister. They landed in LA at some point, and then they just like spawned families here, and everybody stayed super close. I grew up like 4 blocks from this one cousin, and then we moved out to the San Fernando Valley, which folks who know the LA geography, and then we lived like 10 blocks from my other cousins. I got all these first cousins, or second cousins that I see regularly. I am for lack of a better term, something of the sports wife for this one. He's an ENT. If anybody needs an ENT in the South Bay area in Los Angeles, hit me up. I got your guy here. And like when his wife can't go to a Dodger or Laker game, sometimes I get the call. I did not expect it to be on potential LeBron record breaker day. So I gotta sort out my damn life. Cresto, you're going, man. Yeah, I know. God, it'd be so bad if I didn't go and he did break it. I would regret that forever. If I go and he doesn't break it, I won't regret it. It'll still be fun. So, I don't know, man. Wish I knew more babysitters. Hey, Dan. Paulo Banchero is killing me with his percentages. Yeah, rookies do that. Any players off the top of your head you would target in a trade. Here's the problem with Paulo and other rookies at large, is you're never going to get back what you want because Paulo is ranked 168, largely because he's a high volume percentages massacre. Brutal. You can see it on your screen here. High volume 42%, high volume 76% at the line, 3 turnovers per game. The popcorn stuff is all good, but it ain't enough. You need hyper elite to cover up those percentages. The hope, of course, is that he starts to improve on those as you work your way towards the end of the season and as competition level kind of changes and you see tank teams against other tank teams and stuff like that. But if you traded him, you probably want someone in like the 90 range back, but someone in the 90s is like, no way I'm taking on that guy's crap. So, Mr. C, I'm afraid you're stuck. Should I stash Lowry in case he gets traded to a better fantasy-friendly situation? I think you should have Lowry because he's a fantasy starting point guard who's playing through a bad knee, and they're finally shutting him down until he's healthy. I need to do something about my nose right now. Thought I could make it through the show. Couldn't make it through the show. John, my last 3 players are Jabari Smith, Precious Achiuwa, and Kyle Anderson. Will you drop one of those to pick up Mark Williams, points league? Points league. So that's what makes it tough. I would probably drop Kyle Anderson because he's been hurt so often. But like Precious, you're not as worried about his percentages falling apart because if Toronto moves anybody at the deadline, Precious is going to play the rest of the season. And then Jabari, young guy, you don't care about the fact that he's shooting 38% or whatever it is. So it's probably got to be slow-mo because a lot of what he does is efficiency. And in points leagues, it's just not as important. JJJ or CJ McCollum rest of season? I'll go JJJ by a hair. I think CJ is kind of maxed out, especially as the Pels start to get healthier and healthier. I think people are stopping watching the show once they get their question answered. That's actually pretty funny. It's like every time I do one question, one person stops watching. I see you. Seems like the Dedmon trade to San Antonio further implies that something may be brewing for Pirtle. Yeah, something is brewing for Pirtle. They're going to go get a first-round pick for him. But I don't think Dedmon stays there anyway. I think this was the Spurs realizing that they were under this salary. I believe they needed to get above the floor or they had room under the cap or whatever it is, where they could just take on a salary because a pick came with it. They just used lack of salary to get assets. I have 3 moves left. You're right. I'm going to save them for the deadline. Yeah, if you only have 3 moves right now, you can't be using more. If you have 4 or 5 or more, I think you could probably squeeze one out, but should I stash Malik Beasley? No. Josh Richardson? No. Eric Gordon? No. Cam Thomas? Maybe. Kyle Lowry? Yes. Or Bones? Maybe. That's how I feel about all those guys. Lowry should be on a team. I know he's been awful lately, but he's playing through a knee. Cam probably will be useful until Kevin Durant comes back, and then you can move on. And then Bones is interesting because if he gets moved someplace, presumably it's to a place where they'll play him. But like I said earlier, Bones, Colin Sexton, these are the guys to me where you're like hovering the mouse over their name. I don't stash them in advance, but get ready. Especially because Bones is taking zeros right now. Sexton at least is playing whatever it is, 15, 20 minutes a ball game. Actually, I gotta make a note to myself on that one because there is like a points league Colin Sexton in a points league would be really intriguing if Conley and Beasley got out of the way. My voice is fading fast here, by the way. We're getting towards the end of the rope. Dan, been offered Bam and Poole for Jimmy and Big Al. I'm going to pass on this one. I think Poole is a 50 range guy. Bam's like a 30 to 40 range guy, but Jimmy is top 10. Top 10 doesn't grow on trees. Also, this is an 8-teamer, so you really want to consolidate at the top. Yeah, as he should, by the way, because he's been playing hurt. Kyle Lowry out at least 3 games. That's fine. Should I trade Dame and Ben for SGA? Or is Dame enough? Dame should be enough right now. Those guys, Dame's been ahead of SGA for, well, let's see here. 3 months? Let's take a look at our rank board on the screen in front of you. There they go. 5 and 6. They're right next to each other. Shea's been better over those 3 months. Let's go 2 months. There you go. 4 and 5. Yeah, they're the same. You shouldn't need a kicker. How do you view Josh Green rest of season? Yeah, I don't think he's going to have 12-team value once Kyrie and Luka are both playing. I think maybe 14, 16. But until Luka comes back, he should be a 12-teamer. Drop Okongwu to pick up Vanderbilt. No, I don't think so. Jared would need to get moved someplace very special to get a full 28 minutes. He's kind of a dark horse, but all the teams we've heard him linked to, it's probably more of like a 24, 25-minute role, which is what he has in Utah right now, and nobody wants him there at the moment. Okongwu's been really good lately somehow, even with Capella healthy. Drew or Ja? Category leagues, it's Drew by a lot. Points leagues, it's Ja, also kind of by a lot. So that's very format dependent. Good question, though. Do you think Brunson keeps up top 30 value rest of season? Probably more like 50. He's on a heater, but 50, I mean, you still take that. You got drafted back of that. Lowry and Killian Hayes got dropped. Is it worth using an ad to pick one of them up? I would not pick up Lowry until he's healthy again because he just got ruled out for another week. So I think you're going to actually see him getting dropped more places as opposed to added. Hayes is put him on the, mouse hovering over list also. I don't think you need to add him already, but if Burks gets moved to the deadline the way I assume he will, then Hayes becomes kind of a low-end point guard, which is what he was earlier in the year. Everybody was raving about him, but unless you were punting a bunch of stuff, then he still sat like right near the edge of the top 100. So it wasn't like he was blowing the roof off the building. Dan, should I keep Aaron Gordon in an IR slot tonight? I picked Cam Thomas up for him. Yeah, I think if I'm picking between those two guys head-to-head, I'd probably go Cam tonight. Middleton or Jimmy Buckets? It's Jimmy. Best streams the rest of the week? Nobody. It's trade deadline week. You're not streaming this week. Save your damn roster moves. Because everybody on this streamers list for the rest of this week could be on another team in 2 days. Don't do it. Is Gabe Vincent an ad after the Lowry news? But if Miami doesn't do anything in their backcourt at the deadline, then yes, he's a head-to-head streamer. Probably not good enough for a Roto Games cap, though. Do you think trading Luka for a late first or early second is a good idea? Dallas has a meh playoff schedule, and Luka's ankle always seems to flare up, and Dallas has won back-to-back on their 3-3-3 playoff weeks. I don't think I would, David, because your team is probably built around what Luka does, and there just isn't another guy at the top that does that. We always kind of knew that Luka would slowly fall back from his, top 2, 3, 5, whatever. And now he's at 12. And he's going to likely continue to drop little by little because Kyrie's going to do stuff and Luka won't have to do quite as much. But your team is built around his scoring, rebounds, assists, threes, steals, field goal percent, and your team's probably bad at free throws and turnovers. So if you trade him, you have to rebuild your whole roster. His stat set just can't be duplicated. So if you had asked me this question in like November, I might have said yes. But right now, I think it's too late to blow up your team. Is Zach Collins a drop after the Dedmon trade? I was never a big fan of stashing him anyway. I don't think Dedmon does very much. So if you have Collins already and you're holding to the deadline, just keep doing it. Oh, I'm running out of gas here. There's more questions than I realized. All right, we're going quick here. Hey, Dan, got a trade offer sending SGA, RJ Barrett, and Franz Wagner. Oh, to you, receiving. So you're not sending. Team is sending. You are receiving SGA, RJ Barrett, and Franz Wagner for Kawhi and Mikal Bridges. I'm leaning towards holding your own side. Yeah, I prefer Kawhi and Bridges, provided Kawhi's playoff schedule doesn't screw up your team. Brunson for Jimmy Butler. No, not enough. It's a clever trade by the other team because that'll get done in a lot of spots. They thought we done after Kyrie. We just reload. Guillermo, I'm guessing you are a Brooklyn Nets fan. Your team's going to have much better vibes now. Vanderbilt versus Eason. Eason. Do not draft rookies. This is correct. Don't do it. Some of them figure it out by February. A lot of them don't. Mark Williams is probably going to end up being one of the highest ranked rookies of the year. So figure out that. Time to move on. Roberto, surely you were listening to my shows, my 15 shows in a row where I said, treat him like he's injured. He's an injured stash. If you weren't ready to stash for a month, even after he came back, then you weren't listening. Thoughts on Hero for Pirtle points league with extra points for rebounds? That's really hard for me to know. What are they averaging right now, Matt? I have no idea how to do these calculations in my head for points leagues live on air. Does Sexton need one or both of his backcourt mates to be moved? Points leagues, he only needs one. Category leagues, he probably needs both. Should I trade Harden for depth? I was offered Julius Randle and either Clay or Gary Trent Jr. No, that's not enough. It's going. 9-cat game cap. Which big man should I target if I want to trade away DeJounte Murray? Well, let's go to the big board here. Here's DeJounte. There's Sabonis right there. Claxton's right there. Adebayo's right there. You got a lot of good choices right around DeJounte. Vooch, if you wanted to go up a tiny bit, maybe it gets it done. You got great choices, Jack. No, I answered that one already. So you're saying maybe this is in relation to this question. Should I move on from Jonathan Isaac if someone pops up on Thursday? Yeah, I mean, if you see someone on Thursday that you really want on your roster, fine, because Isaac could still be another 3 to 4 weeks at the rate they're going. I thought it would take him a month to get ramped up. They might be going more like let's just have him at 20 some odd minutes by the last game of the season. Woo, Hero averaging 1.5 points over Pirtle, but Hero has cooled off. I'd be getting Jakob. Okay, yeah, I mean, now, based on what I'm seeing here, because Pirtle is trending down, Hero's trending down, and Pirtle, if he gets moved to a place that plays him, he probably jumps over him in your particular format. Last question, Xavier Tillman versus Brandon Clark. Today, it's very much Tillman. They're playing a gigantic team. Chicago. Vooch and Drummond are the big men on the other side. Okay, guys, I'm cooked. I'm sorry. Please like and subscribe on your way out. Ooh, tomorrow I got to go shorter. Oof. I might not be able to do the Q&A on tomorrow's show. Apologies in advance. I got to have a voice for Thursday, and it's not going well right now. Later, everybody.